We have Emily here. Hi, Emily.
How can you see?
No, I just looked and I like have it up on my phone so I can.
Oh, I should do that too, actually.
Because Emily did say something. We have to call up Yasmin. This is the first few minutes where it's like remind people that this is happening.
Oh my gosh! Wait, I don't know how I feel about seeing my own face on the screen.
cover your laptop screen.
Oh my gosh. That's so funny. Hello.
Hi.
Gosh, Lala Loves Lit is here. Wait, this is so surreal to me because I'm such a fan.
Of Jayla?
Oh my gosh, of everyone, literally, but yeah, I'm kind of a fan.
Wow, you should meet her in person. We'll all just go to New York and ambush.
I know. I had FOMO. I had no business having FOMO, but I did.
You're close. You're in Toronto.
You said like, oh yeah, wait, close to New York?
Isn't it?
Actually, I don't know. I haven't really been around.
How long have you been living there? It's on the East Coast.
Oh yeah, I guess in the East. Oh my gosh, I wish I knew more about. You know how people on TV and stuff, people always say like, oh, I'm repping East Coast, West Coast, like different states. I know absolutely nothing about it.
You don't know where you live?
No. Wait, this is so cute. The message on the side. How do you do you know that thing where you can highlight? Oh my gosh. Oh wait, so Dana, you can do it from your end?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh my god.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, the sun star. Wow, look at that.
That was so sweet.
Hi.
Oh my gosh.
Hi. Yes. Oh my gosh, I almost blocked Hannah. I'm sorry, I was about to click the wrong button.
Wait, Dana, I have stage fright.
I know, I'm already sweating.
I'm sweating. I have stage fright because I'm like a really big fan.
Of everyone?
Fan of everyone, I'm not even joking. But I tried to downplay it because
You're trying to be chill?
Yeah, I try to downplay it every time. I guess I'm exposing myself right now. But every time I interact with people like on Bookstagram and stuff, like on Instagram, I reply to I'm like quaking because I'm so nervous. I'm like starstruck.
Oh. You're doing great, Sunny. You're doing great.
Oh my god. I feel like a baby because I feel like, yeah. I look at you guys, I'm like, you guys are like, do you like 선배님?
선배님? What?
Yeah,
we are 선배님 to you?
Yeah. Why? I think of that because I think of people who joined, like, who started their channel before me, and I'm always like, they have seniority. I'm like, oh, 선배.
선배. Actually, let me. 선배, is it I or oi? Do you know?
I think it's I.
선배. Wow, we're doing a Korean lesson.
Wait,
선배. It means you're senior. Wait, but didn't you also start it like around a year ago?
I started in January.
Oh, at least I'll start around the same time.
Yeah.
I feel like everyone started, like so many people started in COVID.
Wait, can I chat in this?
I don't know.
Oh my gosh, wait, that was my.
We're on Restream because I'm shallow and I'm like, I don't like the little duck of StreamYard.
Oh my gosh, wait, Rip, I'm on the wrong.
Oh, there's another Sunny Kim?
It was me. It's my personal channel. I'm such.
Okay, everyone now everyone knows Sunny's personal YouTube.
Oh my gosh, shout out to when I put my full name, like, as my YouTube channel name, and then I got scared and I took it off. But then I ended up putting it everywhere anyway.
Kims, there are so many Kims. I think you're good.
Now I'm embarrassed. Everyone can see. Hello, this is the real me.
This is real. This is me.
Oh my gosh. When Demi, when she folded like a laundry table doing that in Camp Rock. dude.
Wow. Oops. Hannah got distracted by Crash Landing on You. So, priorities.
Oh, I think I watched, oh, this is terrible actually. I watched a compilation of just their cute moments, if that counts.
But you didn't actually watch the show? I mean,
It's,
okay, I haven't watched a Korean drama in a while.
it's so hard for me to finish them because every episode is like a movie.
I guess. I mean, isn't that with every like Korean drama? I don't know.
Yeah, that's why I have trouble watching Korean dramas.
Okay, but also Korean dramas, they're always, pretty much always, unless they're like Americanized. I don't know. What's the one that's on Netflix, the zombie one? I don't know. Kingdom? That one has like 2 seasons. Korean dramas, they do not have multiple seasons. They have 1 season, 16 episodes, and then you're done. We're not gonna make it a huge franchise and have like 20 seasons. Like Game of Thrones, more than 2 seasons. I was so confused. I was like, what is this American thing? Okay, so we're gonna have a movie night, everyone. We're all gonna watch Crash Landing. Okay.
Oh my gosh. Every time someone new comes on here, my heart goes stupid because I'm so nervous. It's because I'm such a fan. Oh, I feel weird like naming names, but I'm like every time I like see people who I like watched before making my channel, I literally like get vertigo. I'm like, this is really weird.
Nice. 11 episodes in a day. Hannah. Also, thank you, Emily. I indeed am beautiful. Actually, the other day I was talking to my friend and I was like, oh my gosh, remember 1 year ago? I was so self-conscious about myself. Like I was talking about my looks and like being so self-conscious a year ago. I was like, oh my gosh, do you remember that? And he was like, yeah, you were like saying like this and this. And it was like kind of weird. And I'm like, I know. And now like I'm so pretty. I'm so beautiful. Like, yeah. Anyway, look at that character growth. Look at that arc.
Oh my gosh, I love that for you. Oh my gosh. Thanks for sharing. I feel like I feel like so many people have like moments or times in their life where they're like, I can't believe that I ever thought that about myself. And you think back to like the littler version of you and you're like, oh, you know what I mean?
It's just we're getting older, we're like not caring anymore.
But look at you. You showed up in a pink blazer.
I literally look like a flower. This is I'm wearing a green skirt. I wore this with Jayla. Jayla knows. This is Jayla.
You, Dana, you do look like a flower, but your outfit is cute too.
Thank you. As an RA, welcoming residents from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. all day next week. Oh my gosh, I was sweating. Our boss is asking way too much, but. Okay. So, how, Sunny? Yeah, how did you choose the name Sunny?
Oh my gosh, that's so sweet. Oh my gosh, thank you, Emily Reed's book. Oh, I'm shy, I'm blushing.
Did you choose the name or like?
My name is Sunny. Like my first name is Sunny, but am I allowed to say this? Sunny's my English name. It comes from my Korean name. It's part of it is similar to my Korean name. Actually, do you know that when I was reading When My Name Was Keoko, do you know how her name is Sunhee? I thought like, oh my gosh, alternate universe, that would be my Korean name. It's not, but when I went to when I was in first year and I met someone for the first time and she was also Korean and she knew that I was Korean and she asked for my name. I was like, oh, it's Sunny. And she was like, Sunhee. So I feel like normally people might think it's my Korean name, but it's not. It's from the last character of my Korean. That's where it's from. Yeah. What about you, Dana?
So my dad, he's very good at English, and a lot of people are like, "Oh my gosh, you're so good at English for a Korean person." I'm like, there are Korean people who like grew up in the U.S. and things like that, and he, like because of his job, he lived in Singapore for a little bit and also Canada for a little bit. Sunny. And so he speaks English very well because in Singapore he went to like an English school and English is an official language there. And so this is unedited me, literally just like me forgetting what I was talking about.
It's all good.
Oh,
Take
okay.
it.
So his name is maybe. Okay, his name has the sound in it, like sung, which a lot of people can't pronounce sung, and so it was very difficult for people to pronounce, and so he struggled. And so then when we had kids in the U.S., even though they were planning to move back to Korea, he was like, okay, let's give them English names because I don't want them to go through what I had to go through. And so we were born with English names. One of the origins of my name, origin stories, because I've asked my mom this so many times and she always changes it. I don't know if that's like anybody else. It's like, wow, mom, like, how did you figure out this? Or like, how did you do this? And it's different every single time. I don't know. But she's like, oh, I really like the name Donna. And, you know, Donna, D-A-N-A. And then I wrote that on your birth certificate. And the nurses were like, oh my gosh, Dana. And my mom was like, what the heck? But went with it. So.
Oh, that's such a fun. Do you remember, I don't know if you remember. I remember. But Dana, one of the first things that I said to you was like, oh my gosh, I really love your name. And then I asked, is your Korean name Tana? Do you remember me asking that?
Yeah. But a lot of people just say Tana. But okay.
People say Sunny to me too.
Yeah. I mean, even in Korea, like they just call me like Dana instead of Tata. Yeah. Which in when my name was Keoko, like I loved the scene where it talked about the names and yeah, so in my name,
I hate the idea of having to English. Yeah, no one, only my family calls me by my Korean name. Everyone always refers to me as Sunny.
Good. Dana. Yeah, a lot of people call me Dana, and it's fine. Like I went to Madrid, Spain. I was studying abroad there for a little bit. Had to come back early because of COVID, but yeah, I just introduced myself as Dana because it's easier for people around the world to pronounce. So I was just like, yeah, I'm Dana. And then people who knew me before were like, since when? I was like, don't worry about it. Who cares? Bye, Hannah.
Oh my gosh. Have fun working. My name is modified to Leah. Lucy means father and prayer.
Love that for you.
That is a cute look. I love the name Jayla. I think that it was so pretty. Oh, I thought that's such a beautiful name.
But yeah, when my name was Keoko, like they talked about the names. So in Korean names, you'll know a lot of the last names are one syllable, and then the first names are two syllables. So then it's like all three syllables. So in a lot of legal documents and things, they'll just have like 3 boxes, and then you just write your name in the 3 boxes, which is I don't know, it's cool. And I don't know. Okay, when my name was Keoko, what did y'all think of it? Wow. I hope you all were able to finish it with an extra day.
Yeah, thank you for your patience, everybody.
Yay. I'm so glad that so many of you are here. Yeah, names. Speaking of names, Keoko. Wow, that's a all right name. Yeah, it was. So I read this in middle school, and then like I remembered so many things from it. And while I was reading it, I was like, oh my gosh. And it was just, yeah, like this is my basis foundation for Korean history. Is this fiction? Did you finish it, Yasmin? You got the extra time? Maybe. But yeah, also at my library, there were 2 copies of it, and they were both free, and like nobody had checked it out for such a long time. And so I was like, okay, whatever. I don't have to put it on hold. I'll just go and grab it. And so I made the announcement video, and the next day I went to the library, and they were both checked out. I was like, what the heck?
Can you imagine if it was like someone who was like, oh, I heard that there's a live stream going on. Better go to the library.
2 people who know me. 2 out of 200 people.
Oh my gosh.
Jasmine, did you enjoy your Korean vibes last night?
Yeah. It looks so good. I remember I was gonna go check it out at the library, but then I didn't because I was too lazy to walk to the library. Yeah.
But yeah, it's just so fun. It was so cool. Like the names, I loved how much Korean culture it also put into it, and I think it was written so it's like middle grade, so it was so digestible for people to like learn and learn about Korean culture and like traditions and thing without it being too overwhelming or dense, while also mixing in like what was not what was like taken away, because it talked about how in Korean the names, they have like Chinese roots. So similar to how in English we have like Latin and Greek roots, in Korean all of our roots are like Chinese, and so each character will have a meaning. Yeah, so yeah, so I thought that was very cool, and I don't know, it was just and oh my gosh, and then them choosing the last name like Kaneyama to keep the history of like their last name and all of those things.
Were they originally Kims?
Mm-hmm.
Kims?
They were your family, Sunny.
They were my family. Me and a third of Korea. They were our family. No, but I'm not sure if you had the same feeling, but maybe I'll show this later in the stream. But this is jumping a little bit. But I like bawled like a baby like at the end of this book. And I have a video of it. I took a video.
I'll screen share. We'll just all sit here watching Sunny cry for a minute.
Send it to you. I was gonna send it to you, Dana, but then I was like, you know, it would be a good idea if I unleashed it on Dana during this live stream. I actually look crusty, but I was actually bawling like a baby. I was bawling like a baby, but it was like a delay cry because I'm not sure if anyone else like felt this too, but it was kind of like, especially near the end, I was like reading it and just like any other book, and then afterwards I kind of sat with it for a little while. And did you feel like this bizarre sense of like, I don't know, this bizarre sense of like just heartbreak, because knowing that this trauma is like in our family line, but separation, because I feel really disconnected from that part, because like my family immigrated here and we're not really close with our relatives, and we didn't learn about this history in our schools. So it was like this bizarre sense of like feeling very connected to my history all of a sudden, like learning this for me was the first time, because I had never read this book and I had never really known anything about the Japanese occupation besides the fact that Korea was occupied by Japan at some point. And just like hearing about this family's experience, it was like all so sudden to me, but then also it was cut with like disconnection, and it was just like so bizarre to me. And then I think I just was feeling very confused at the end. My heart was feeling very confused.
Yeah, this, oh my gosh, like people are talking about like it's dark, but it's not too dark. Like, yeah, I think it was. I'm glad, Sunny, that it like impacted you. So, and yeah, that's how I felt. Like I was just like, whoa, I didn't know about any of this. And like first of all, they don't really teach Asian history in general, at least like where I am around this area. It's very like Western Central. And then also, I mean, there are like massacres and things all over the world, and like occupations and awful things that happen all over the world. And because the Japanese government doesn't teach it as well to like their people, like it's not in their curriculum, like, and Japan doesn't really acknowledge it and denies it, which I mean, that's like all colonizers and things, I guess, whatever. But because of that, a lot of the world doesn't know about it and doesn't acknowledge it. And so, yeah, it was just so cool to have this in such a digestible book. And also, oh, at the end, I don't know if you read like the author's notes where she talks about like why she wrote this book, and she talks about how there were hundreds and thousands of women that were put into like slavery and to fulfill the needs of the imperial military forces. I read Grass, the graphic novel. It was about these comfort women, and like, oh my gosh, one woman would take like 40 customers, 40 military men per day. Oh my gosh, like holy moly. And they were tortured. And my cousin, who's like just started middle school, she's reading a book about it for her school. which I don't know. It's so intense. And she messaged me and she saw that I was doing this. And she's like my little baby. Like she just started middle
Mhm.
school,
Mhm.
and she was I'm glad you're doing this because I want people to know what happened in Korea and like what Korea went through from Japan. And I was like, oh my god, my little baby.
Yeah.
So
Oh my gosh, I remember reading the acknowledgements and reading about those comfort women, and then afterwards, I don't know if this was a smart decision. I was like really I was in a bout, okay? But I watched this interview. I think it was by the YouTube channel Asian Boss, that YouTube channel.
oh,
Um,
mhm.
yeah, they did like an interview. Someone did conducted an interview with their grandmother, I'm pretty sure, who was a one of these comfort women. I think she was in her 90s during that interview, and then unfortunately, shortly after that interview, in like the comments, it said that she had passed away. But and this was like the last interview that she had, and if like be fair warned, like it's a very hard interview to watch, but if you want to like hear about one like comfort woman's experience, like it was a really really eye-opening interview. It was very very heartbreaking, very hard to watch, but it's on YouTube. Asian Boss. Yeah.
Asian Boss does so many cool things with like
Yeah.
raising awareness for things that are happening. And yeah. Ah. But yeah, more things. The Olympics. So I looked more into this. I knew that it was a thing, and I thought it was so cool. In the author's note, she also talked about how in 19 no wait what yeah in 1948, Son Ki-jung, he actually like represented Korea, not as an athlete, but like just like waving the flag and introducing everyone and like lit the torch and things like that. But yeah, apparently until like he was still categorized and recognized as Japanese in
Mhm.
the official Olympic records, like the profile, until December of 2011. Like Korea had been fighting, and this was during the 1936 Olympics, where he held the world record for like 12 years, and then Korea had been trying to get the Olympics to recognize that he was actually Korean, and that didn't happen until 2011. The medal still goes to Japan because they're like, oh, we don't want to confuse like records things, but
Um,
um, they in his official profile now they recognize that he was nationally and ethnically Korean, and that apparently he tried to sign his name in Korean when he was like signing up and like approving things, and also in interviews kept stressing that Korea was its own separate nation, which I was just like, oh my gosh, like he was so brave to be doing that. And I feel like the Japanese would have like murdered him, but he was since he was on.
mhm.
I was wondering like, why didn't they kill him? Like he was speaking all this crap against Japan and being like, oh Korea, Korea. And I realized probably because he's now a world known athlete. If they
Mhm.
murder him, then it's gonna look not so
Mhm.
great. Um, but yeah, just like he refused to acknowledge the Japanese anthem as it was playing during his award ceremony, and yeah, he just seems like he was fighting so hard. And apparently, he wrote a book about like that whole thing. And also, right now, if you see, there's in the Olympics that just ended, right? It
Mhm.
just ended.
Yeah.
Taiwan competed as Chinese Taipei because China was like, oh, Taiwan is actually part of China, and so like you can't compete as Taiwan because that's disrespecting us, but you can compete
Mhm.
as Chinese Taipei. And the Olympic Committee was like, okay, they have to compete as Chinese Taipei, which
Oh.
I don't know. It just seems so weird. Like 20 years from now, are we going to be like, oh my gosh, Taiwan competed under China's name? Like all of these things, like politics and moving borders, is still happening. And it's just so weird. And this is so recent, like 1950s and things. And then even now, with Taiwan being going as Chinese Taipei, and it's just
Yeah. Wow, I didn't know that. Oh my gosh, thank you for sharing. I did not know any of that. 2011 is so recent. Like, that's recent. That's recent because I still remember because 2010 was the first Olympic that I think I remember, or 2012. I think 2012. I forget. But those were the first Olympics that I remember like watching and stuff. So yeah, that is so recent. And it kind of reminded me of this is what I have written down at one point, but I remember when I was reading it, I forget when it was, but I was thinking like, oh, something that this book really made me do that I had never thought about before was I felt like it really put like a magnifying glass to like the question of like what makes a country, like what makes a nationality, like what makes an identity, because outside of because right, I feel like with countries and stuff we kind of think of like geographical land, you know, and borders, but like you said, like borders and stuff, like that stuff is always shifting. So when you take that away, what is left? Like what really makes a country, you know? And it says here, I think Sunhee says they can't just. Oh no, I remember. It is when they it was from Sunny's point of view, but they made the her and her friends, like the students there, practice bayoneting like soldiers like during school, right? And she said like they can't just think we'll become Japanese. And then at another point, it said, Korean was the jokes and stories uncle told us. It was the flag he'd drawn. It was the rows of Sharon tree Omoni had saved and the little circle table had carved. You know, all this kind of stuff. Korean was the thoughts of Mrs. An in her own language, not someone else's. Which, by the way, I love that part. That part really touched me when she was like, they only get 5. They only get 5 numbers. They'll only have 5 of my thoughts.
I know.
After that, I'm not thinking about Japanese numbers. And
Oh gosh. And then at the end, when it was revealed, like more things that Miss An did, like
yeah,
holy moly.
yeah. And I remember reading this part and being like, I've never thought, yeah, because when like land is taken away, it doesn't really take away the country. It's like really like with the people, and I just had never thought about that before.
Yeah. And also it's so whack that yes, Miss An is a baddie.
Value.
Also, like I just loved all of the people and the recognition of like the normal people, like the average people of Korea, like not the like superheroes or like all of these epic people, and like it tackled that in this book because even at the end when Taylor was like, oh, our uncle like did so much and like my dad didn't do crap and blah, but like I feel like first, I mean, everyone did do a really important thing. Like the dad was found out to have, spoiler, like participated secretly in the resistance, and like Mrs. An was hiding people, like and keeping them safe during the resistance, and all of these things. And so, like all of these tiny parts that people play, that like everyday people play, it's not just the big heroes that you see in textbooks and things, and it's just like normal people. And it talked about the struggles of like the Chin Il Pa of her friend Tongsun or Tonghi or
I think it
something.
was like Chongin.
Yeah, yeah, Tonghi, and like the things that she went through, and then at the end when the colonization was over, like she was in trouble and had to flee, and just I don't know, it's just like what you have to do for survival, I guess. It was, oh my gosh.
Yeah, I completely agree with like what you said about thinking about like what the common people, so the people who aren't like being glorified in like textbooks and stuff are doing. Because I don't know, when you do think about it, like this is something that I thought of when I was reading The Nightingale also by Kristen Hanna. But the fact that like resilience can manifest in so many different ways for different people, even let's say even if you don't join the resistance, like taking part in a group that is actively fighting this colonial rule, even something like if you think about like what Omoni was doing, literally just caring for her family, being there for her kids, that kind of stuff, like you know what I mean, like even just being there for people, I feel like, can you imagine, like I don't know, just like the little things like that would be so difficult. Like I feel like resilience is so hard to, like I don't know how I'm able to do it. Like all this, it just comes out in so many different ways,
I don't. Yeah, I always wonder, like, if I lived in this time, what would I do? And I feel like nothing.
Oh,
but also,
yes.
but also, like, yeah, everyone was fighting in different ways, and also I loved. Uh, oh my gosh, I forgot the main character's name. Oh, Sunhee. Yeah, Sunhee. I loved like her humanizing these people. Like, oh, Jeongsin, that was her name, right?
Oh,
Jeongsin.
yeah, Jeongsin was
Yeah,
Jeongsin.
Jeongsin. Wait, is it Jeongsin? Like Jeongsin이었어? Her
I
name
guess
came.
I feel like Jeongsin is a name by itself too. I feel like I know people named Jeongsin.
Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, Jeongsin, and she was like, "Oh, poor Jeongsin. Like, I hope that she's treated okay." And then also Tomo, her Japanese
Oh,
friend,
yeah, Tomo's friend.
and she's like, "Oh my gosh!" And the part where it's like he's leaving the only home he'd ever known. Like this colonization happened for 35 years, and so many people were born and just like raised in this life and like knew no other life. And of course, like kids, they aren't responsible for what their parents do, but
Mhm.
I just thought it was so cool that it wasn't like villainizing, that this book didn't villainize those people. It didn't villainize Japanese people, or at least in my perspective. I don't think it villainized Japanese people as a whole, like individually. As a whole, the government did a lot of bad things. We know that. But
Mhm.
on the individual level, like Sunhee still had so much like compassion for the other people. And I was just like, oh my gosh, because she's just like, oh, like I miss them. Like I hope they're okay. At the end, I was like, oh my
Yeah, the man who walks down the street, what do they call him?
oh, like something flat face, like iron face or pale, like a spade, flat spade.
When they
Okay,
said
my
that,
face is also flat. I always talk about this, how my face is like so flat.
not my side profile. Every time I see my side, I'm like, ugh. But yeah, oh my gosh, spade face. I was like, okay, okay, chill. No, but I agree. I think that the fact that it was from the perspective of a, you know a little girl. Even Taylor is supposed to be like, what is he, like 17, 18?
Oh,
Even that,
he was 17, but then he like signed up because he said he was 18 because in
yeah.
Korean, so there's Korean age. The school year, rather than going from like summer to summer, it just goes like with the calendar year. So like winter to winter. And so in Korean, your age, like if you were born in the same year, all of you are the same age. You don't like gain a year on your birthday, you gain a year with the new year. And so how you calculate your age, if you want to know your Korean age, how old are you going to turn this year plus one? So
Yeah, we always have like a Korean. Every time like I'm talking to someone, I'm like, oh, do I see that my international age and then Korean age? Because
yeah,
you're one when you're born.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
confusing to me too.
But yeah, he was also so young.
Yeah, so young. So young. Especially, oh my gosh, I don't know. Especially when I was reading it, I like forgot that Taylor was supposed to be that much older than Sunny, because to me, reading both of them, I was like, they're just kids. Like,
Yeah, and just also Sunhee is like so smart. Her like cleaning the dishes and like listening in, and
oh
like
yeah.
her relationship with Taya is like so cute, and like her asking him to give her like inside secrets on what the men of the house are talking about. And I think I was also like a little bit worried when I started reading again. I was like, oh, is this like super sexist? But I think it showed it well because they weren't like treating the women badly. It was just like there are some like traditionally cultural things where like, oh, this is like men's talk and whatever. But
Yeah. At the time, it was very much like
yeah,
that.
yeah,
Oh, I loved Omoni. Oh, what was I gonna say? Oh, I was gonna say straight away from the beginning. I do you know how people call like their parents like I feel like for the most part I've heard like people say like 엄마 아빠, you know? Um my family, like my sister and I, have always called their parents 어머니 and 아버지, which is
fancy family.
Korean. It's kind of like calling your parents mother and father instead of mom and dad. But my sister and I, our family has always been like that, and people would make fun of us, like other Korean people, other Korean families would make fun of us, and I remember being embarrassed about it. That we were the only ones who ever called our parents 어머니 아버지 instead of 엄마 아빠. So the second I started reading this book and I saw 아버지 and 어머니, I got a little bit emo. I got a little bit emo. So it really hit.
I feel like in like older times when there was like more respectful and like formal language,
Yeah.
it was used more. Because I asked my mom which my mom is like history language nerd, and so I always ask her like everything about Korea.
Mhm.
So like yeah, I asked her like do young people call so 엄마, 아빠, mom, dad, 엄마, 아빠, follow along kids, 엄마, 아빠. And then so that's like mom or mommy, dad, daddy. And then the more formal version. So if you say like mother, father would be 어머니 and 아버지.
Mhm.
Oh. But yeah, so that's more formal. And I feel like even if you look at like period dramas or something from Western cultures as well, they also say like mother, father. So
Mhm.
oh, people are trying to come in.
Oh, I was gonna say like that. Yeah, I remember because when people would hear us saying like 어머니 아버지 stuff, people would be like, oh, that's so formal. Like it's so formal because obviously like it does. But to me, it's like 엄마 아빠 doesn't have like that much of an emotional trigger for me. I feel like that it might have for other people.
Yeah.
So seeing 어머니 아버지 was like I
Yeah.
was out of my flesh. I was like, I'm not ready for this. I'm not ready for this. Uh, yeah.
Yeah. There were so many like little parts of the book. Like I highlighted so much that was just like so amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing that I kind of thought about was, I guess this is interesting because we're reading about this period in Korea, but Dana, you and I are both living in not Korea. We're like Korean. I was gonna ask, is there a word for? I'm sure there is, and I'm being a goldfish about it. But is there a word for like? Because I always want to say like AAPI, but AAPI is like Asian American Pacific Islander. What if you're not living in America, or is
Oh
it like
yeah.
America?
So yeah, I don't know. That's also I've been learning more and more thanks to Sajid from Books Are My Social Life. Just like in general, becoming more aware of things and how like everything is very America centric, and it's like, oh, this is Asian American Heritage Month in May, but like it's literally like America. It's just America's holiday, and like, oh, it's Pride Month in June for America. For America, as in like the U.S. I also try not to say like, oh yeah, I'm American because U.S. Because then there's like North and South America, and I'm not trying to exclude the Canadians or the Latin Americans. So
Oh, would it be Asian diaspora? Maybe, yeah, but yeah, I'm like I always say like I always just say like oh yeah, Asian people who grew up in like the Western or who grew up like Westernized, but
do you know this word?
교포? No.
Oh, okay. Kyopo is what like my cousins in Korea call me. It's just like Korean people who grew up like foreign Korean people.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I think it used to be a little bit negative,
Oh,
but now there are so many that it's just like whatever.
oh, okay, I see, I see.
You know, kind of like not I don't want to say like infected or like polluted or I don't know. But I think now I don't know. Anyways, it's not like super negative, but Kyopo, wow, look at this
Cool.
lesson.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow, I learned something new today. Okay, but I was gonna say that like Dana, you and I are like yeah, we didn't grow up in Korea, you know? And I remember when I was in middle school, like even like just like, you know, as a youth, um, when I would have friends who were also Asian Canadian, but like not Korean. So if they're like Chinese Canadian, what have you, we would kind of like jokingly talk about like, oh yeah, our countries hate each other, or like, oh, our countries are cool with each other. Like I'm not sure if that's like a thing that
Wait,
happens.
like China versus Korea kind of
Yeah,
thing?
we would say that kind of stuff about ourselves, like very like flippantly almost. It'd be like kind of a joke, right? We'd be like, oh no, we're chill. Our countries are blah, 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 blah. And we used to like say that kind of stuff. I feel like it's pretty common, like people joke about it. And then reading this book, I was like,
You understand why like Koreans hate
I don't know.
Japanese? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. No, I was like reading about it. I was like, man, there's like so much history there that like we don't know about, and we're talking about it like so flippantly. And like, it's not, I feel like, anybody's fault, like, because it's something that we didn't even know there was a history to learn about, you know? But it just made me think, like, it just made me think that there's so much that we don't, that we didn't learn about, we weren't taught, and we didn't even know there was anything to learn about. But then we like talk about it like so flippantly. I said
Yeah.
flippantly about a million times,
Somebody
but
counted it.
very many times. Um, and then sometimes I think like if you learn about it, there's so much to unpack there. Like, is that maybe like that is the only way that we can really like interact about it? It just made me think a lot. It just made me think a lot about that. You know, it's
Yeah.
very, very complex.
I mean, I think there definitely is in my experience also, and even in Korea, like I've met like actual like international people. There's a battle, not a battle, but like it's just like oh, like Korea's the best, like a little bit like superiority complex kind of thing. Or I was also talking to my friend who's Chinese American about this, and we were just talking about our parents and how I mean, like now being in the U.S. for a while, they've like cooled down a little bit, but just being like, oh yeah, like it's just like this, and they just have ideas of how people act from different countries, and I don't know. I mean, it's all just not being aware, but yeah, there's a lot of history, and like it's not the individual, right? Like the Chinese Americans or like whoever Chinese Canadians, other people, like they are not specifically involved in anything that happened. Like I will still consume some Japanese media because like this person who wrote the book, this Japanese author, did not like support colonization during that time. So, but yeah, there are a lot of things, and even China with like communism and taking over Korea and things like that. Like there's so much history that we know nothing about, and that's why right now, like I'm trying to fill in all of the gaps of my history knowledge, and there. I mean, I don't even know if you can say gaps because like, can like there's always you can't know everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I.
Oh, I really knew like nothing coming into this book. I would say next to nothing. I knew next to nothing about coming to this book. In a
And
strange way, though. Yes, sorry, go for it.
okay, no, something that I just think about is that this was for 35 years, which is like kind of almost a generation. And I
Yeah,
was just thinking, like, if
yeah,
this happened for a like one more decade, maybe or something, like how long would Korean culture have lasted? Because as you said, like what makes a country, I thought it was so cool, like how strongly these people were working, and like Sunhee and Taeyeol, they didn't learn Korean at all. And so once their parents, like who read Korean, I thought the newspaper printed in both Japanese and Korean, so cool. But like once, not to be morbid, but like once those people pass, like Korean language would just pretty much be lost. And there are so many situations like that where whole cultures and languages are destroyed. And then sometimes the ones that we know about, at least, like there's some small resistance that keeps it and then like livens it back up again. But I just think about like, oh my gosh, if that occupation had lasted another decade or something, would we be here? Would we be able to speak Korean? Like, I just like what would happen?
yeah. Even just like how different would the scape look? Because I was having this conversation with my driving teacher, who moved here from Singapore, and he asked me, "Oh, are there a lot of English speakers in Korea?" And I said, I don't really think so. I feel like there are foreigners who can speak Korean, but I think that for the most part, Korea is a pretty just Korean speaking country. And then I said, "Oh, what about in Singapore?" And he said, "Oh yeah, everyone in Singapore or a lot of people in Singapore can speak like English." He says like, "Oh, he speaks his mother tongue, which is Malay, and then also English, and then also Mandarin." And I was like, "Oh wow, I didn't know that." And he said, "Oh yeah, it's because Singapore was a British colony for some period of time." And then so that makes me think like what you said, oh, if this happened for even like a decade longer, it might have looked something like that where there is just regularly Japanese speakers in Korea. And I said this in my video, but even my great grandmother I know had a she was culturally Japanese, even though ethnically she was Korean. So she had like a Korean name, a Japanese name, Yukiko, that she went by. By the way, I did not know that until like maybe 2 years ago. Like I don't know anything about my family history, which is why this was such like a special insight into some part of, you know, the mother tongue, the mother country.
Yeah.
Um,
I didn't know so much about my family history either. Like until the past few years, like my grandpa was like, "Oh yeah, I went down a hill to like fetch water every morning." I was like, "What the heck?" I don't
Mm.
know. I just like never thought about those things. And
Even the Korean War, you said to me like, "Oh wow, this ended," and then the Korean War happened. It was like a double whammy, and I was like, "You're so right." And yeah, even me, I only learned about. I don't go to Korea almost ever. Ever. I would say that I don't really go. Our family doesn't really go. We're not really close with our extended family. But I remember one of the first times that I really had a conversation with my grandmother on the phone. It was for like a history project to learn more about our personal history, and that was the first time that I ever learned that my grandmother, she was like a kid during the Korean War, and she remembers. Oh my gosh, this is so morbid to talk about. It's so scary to talk about. But she said that she remembers when she was like 5 or 6 years old, like just lying awake in an empty house in the middle of the night because everyone else in her family had to run away into the forest every single night, um, in order to avoid soldiers like knocking on their door to conscript them into the army. So she would like just as like a 6-year-old sleep in an empty house like almost every night. All her family members would run away in the night.
oh my god,
I was like, wow, I did not know that. And I am now, how old was I? I was like, I'm now 16, and this is the first time I'm hearing about this.
yeah. Like I learned that at least my grandma. I'm guessing like other parts of my family too. Like when the war was happening, she was sent to like family in the countryside so that she wouldn't be like in the city. My family is from Seoul, the capital of Korea. So yeah, she was sent into the countryside, and I was like, I learned this when I was a little bit younger, so I was like, ooh, like Narnia style, which it's just like ooh Narnia, but like that was a war, like
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, just that, and then also within the past, not within the past year, I don't know, COVID like threw a whole gap, but within the past few years, I found out that like my grandpa, his dad was like some ambassador person and was kidnapped at the beginning of the Korean War and then never seen again.
Dana, Dana. I figured out in that same assignment. Oh, I forget who told it to me. I figured out that we have some estranged family, some family member who um had a partner, went to the other side of the border for a hot minute, border closed, and never heard from again. We don't know who. Never heard from again. Don't know how they're doing, who they are, if they're still alive, what happened
Yeah.
there.
And like 2 years ago when I went to Korea, I met the dad was kidnapped because he was like a higher position, and so the North kidnapped him, and uh, the North kidnapped him, and 2 years ago, kidnapped him and then left his wife, mother of his children, with 7 children to raise on her own. And so like they all had to like raise their own, like the brothers and everything, they would raise each other like as each one grew up. And so my dad talked about how when he was young, he always had like his uncles in his house, living in his house and things like that. And it would be, I just love, I mean, it's an awful situation, but I love like the community that, like the sense of community and like family supporting and all of these things that we have. And 7 children. Like both of my grandparents on that side, it's like 7 children and like 8 children. I'm like, oh my gosh. But yeah, and 2 years ago I met one of my great uncles. I don't know how you call these people, but he was like, they put in so much effort searching for him and like any records of him, because they were thinking like, oh, maybe since he was a higher position, they would have had records of like killing him or torturing him or anything. And I think in Springfield, Illinois, there is some kind of like Korean War museum or something. And he asked my dad to go there and see if there were any records. And it's just like, wow, now how many years, like decades later, his children are still searching for like answers of what happened to their father, because like 7 children later, that's maybe like the oldest kid was over 10 years old. And so it's just like having your father for that, and then just, and oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh.
I know. Yeah.
Things are
They're
wild.
all, like, I need to talk to my grandparents more, especially after reading this book. I'm like, oh my gosh.
Mm-hmm. There's so much that, like, you don't know, I feel like, about your family, especially if you're not close to your relatives, you know? I don't know, like, because to me, it feels like a vacuum. Like, I have my immediate family, we're the only ones here, right? And, like, it feels like such a vacuum. Like, I've never thought about this stuff before, even.
Yeah.
Oh,
Maybe
also,
I shouldn't just be like sharing this willy-nilly, but I was just like, it was shocking to me. And like, I don't know, maybe I don't personally understand or like feel it, or I haven't like personally processed it on my own, but yeah, there's just like so much that our grandparents went through, and like it was so recent. And I talked about in the "you have 24 hours remaining" video, which ended up being like 48 hours, but anyway, in that video I talked, like literally a few days ago, there was a post on Facebook where it talked about, because I kind of think that the immigrants are like little time capsules of what the culture was like there. Because I know that some of the Korean people in our community that immigrated, like kind of one generation up. So I'm like first generation US. My parents immigrated, and so like second generation immigrant. But those one more generation up, like that, she is so conservative and so traditional, and she's like, these Americans have these values, but back in my country, like we think like this and this and this. And I'm like, my grandparents don't think like that anymore, because they have been living there and have been going through all of the social things and like progress that has been made versus the progress that has been made in the US. She just has rejected it because she's like, well, this is not like my culture. This is like their culture. And so, and then also just like not keeping up with everything. And so in that Facebook thread, there were so many people talking about, like, the word 단무지?
Mm-hmm.
Or 단무지? Actually,
I like 단무지.
Yeah, 단무지, actually it sounds Japanese now that I think of it. But yeah, 단무지 is Japanese, and then odeng is Japanese, and there are just like so many borrowed Japanese words, like like ballet is like a French word, like that kind of thing. But, like, people didn't notice, and like they were saying all of these words, and some of them I was like, yeah, like even recently they started calling odeng
어묵.
Yeah, 어묵. Did you also figure this out recently?
I didn't know that. The only one that I did know that kind of shook me for a little bit was omurice. I don't know why I thought that had to. I was like, I really heard that and thought that it was Korean in origin. It definitely is not. But
once I hear it, I'm like, okay, now I can hear it. Like omurice, like it just sounds like omurice, but then I can hear like omurice. Like there's a lot of, in Japanese, there's a lot of like vowels in between the consonants because of like how the language works and things. Like McDonald's is like McDonald's, like vowels in between all the consonants.
단무지 and odeng, I had no clue though.
Yeah.
Oh, that makes so much sense, because I thought like, oh, what's the difference between odeng and 어묵? It's like fish cake. It's like a fish cake. I didn't know what the difference was. I kind of took a 50-50 shot at it every time that I needed to use it.
Yeah. I think like within the past year, kind of, it's been more, and within the past few years, it's been more like they're trying to use 어묵 and like all of these words. And I just thought that was so interesting. And in the thread, they were talking about how like their grandparents immigrated to the US, and they were using so many other words that I had never heard of. So I'm like, oh my gosh, there were so many words that like had already been converted back to Korean by the time that I was like growing up and learning Korean, versus like what my parents learned versus what one generation above learned and like kept using. And one of my friends, he talked about how his grandma actually like speaks Japanese better than she speaks Korean, and she never really like adjusted back, which makes sense. Like if you were born at the beginning of this colonization and then 35 years of your life you're speaking Japanese, like you're like it's hard to then learn another language when you're like 35. And so
I feel like even if you were born nearing the end of the occupation or even just after, it's not just like everything went back to normal. It would, I imagine, take a lot of time for things to get to where they are. I imagine that there are some things that are still, you know, adjusting, which made me remember. I remember it said there. This one I was really really shocked at because I didn't know this. But when we look at Sunny and Tae like in school, and the fact that so much of their basic education was missing, it was replaced by they were learning things about like imperial Japan and things about the emperor instead of like other education. And it made me think like, oh, there's like a generation because like you said, it's almost a generation. There's just a generation of people who didn't have that education in elementary school, and what kind of impact did that have like going down the generation, and especially like not being able to read and write Hangul. This one really made me check myself a little bit because I feel like I really catch myself a lot thinking like I need to remember that the fact that I am able to learn Korean is a privilege here, and the fact that like I can speak it with my parents and I have my parents to like as a resource to learn it and stuff because I know that not everybody has that too. Like it's such a privilege. And I was reading this, and especially when Sunny asked her father, I think she asked Abuji, it's so weird for me to say that because my abuji is like right here. But she asked him like, "Oh, can you teach me Hangul?" And he was like, "No, it's like dangerous. It's like it's physically, it's physically life threatening to do that, to try to educate yourself and learn Hangul." That really slapped me across the face because that really coincided with the time that I just got a new job being a Korean instructor to like the student, and I was like, I really had to sit with myself for a second and be like, Sunny, you are living good.
yeah. And yeah. Yeah, Abuji was such a cool, interesting character. And like at the end when Pear is like mad, and I highlighted this, like why when everything was over, like why didn't he tell me? And then Sunhee's like, that isn't his way, Oppa. He did what he did, but felt no need to talk about it. Like he's just, oh, I have goosebumps. Like he's just such a cool person. What the heck? Like, and like everything that the Abuji did, he's just like, yep, we're just like, I'm just doing the thing. And I thought it was so cool. Like when the colonization ended, he's like, okay, getting my school back up, like doing lesson planning again and all these things. And yeah, he was just such a cool character.
Let me tell you about a time that I teared up and cried on this. Do you remember when I literally wrote this down because it was so, this is what I actually felt like physically ill reading this part. It was when Uncle was talking about Sunny's grandfather, so like his father, about the top knot, the hair. I believe it or not, I was eating, I was eating kimchi. I put the book down because it made me so, oh, it made me so like, you know, the vibes. I was so, I could, it was so hard to read, eh? Oh my gosh, not me saying A like a Canadian. I was, that I try not to say it in my YouTube video because I don't want to perpetuate some type of stereotype. I say A like a Canadian. I know. I'll start saying it in my videos now. But I was reading it, I was like, and I had to put it down because it made me so ill. It was like such a, you know what? It's heartbreaking seeing the people that you love be treated that way. I imagine that no, I imagine that it was more difficult for the kid to see that happen to the father. That's like a different kind of heartbreak. That like hits so different. Seeing your parent treated badly.
Yeah. And also like the mom or his wife like picking it all of the hairs out and oh, that was so like I was like, oh no, and then they put in the kimchi and I was like, oh no, which I think that was like it was so intense and it probably happened, but it was also so symbolic because like kimchi is a big part of Korea, and so like it was just so symbolic for them to just destroy, and then they stirred it in, and I was like, no. But the wife, I'm so sorry if I'm like too loud. Also, let me know if like I'm talking louder than Sunny or Sunny's voice is louder because like I can adjust that to make it okay. But anyway, but the wife picking all of the hairs out. First of all, like what a labor of love, and second of all, when it said like, and then if there was one, then he would like stop eating, which I was like, yes.
잠깐만.
You need a moment. You need a moment.
Even just you, my face camera. Even just you talking about this, 또 떠올라. I can feel it happening again. I can feel it happening again. The feeling that I was feeling when I was reading it, just hearing you talking about it. It's like it was such a double whammy, like seeing it happen, and then it just kept happening. The mom. That's
yeah. Like when I feel like when people watch those traditional Korean dramas, you should watch Queen. So there was something. Oh, Mr. Queen. Mr. Queen is a Korean drama that my aunt, like I don't know if y'all heard it, but you should watch it. It's a Korean drama called Mr. Queen. It was so much fun. It was so much fun, and it was so beautiful. It's set in like old Korea, so you know they're wearing the hanboks, and like living in these palaces and things like that. My aunt made it. Wow, she's like a producer person, but very cool.
What?
I know, but yeah. So you should watch it. But in all of these traditional, whenever people watch the traditional Korean dramas, they're like, "Oh my gosh, I love all of the hats." Like the men, there's different hats for like each ranking and things. But the thing is, like, it's you have your top knot and then the hat. And I just when I read this again, now knowing more, like it just reminded me of the residential schools in the Americas, like in the U.S. and Canada, where they would take children of these indigenous communities who hair is very important to them as well, and then they would be like, "Oh, this is disgusting," and cut it and give them like Western hairstyles. And even Sunhee said like she had to get like a bob or something for her school. So like just that colonization and yeah, here's the show Hanan. Yay. But yeah, the colonization and all of these symbolic things of stripping away things that don't seem super important, like language. You know, when you think of a culture, you're like, oh yeah, language, food. But then there's things like your hair that like not distinguish you, but it's still so important, and it's just like a regular part. And that happens so much where they just cut off your hair, and that was
Yeah. First of all, that's so cool that your aunt was a producer.
I know. I met Kim Tae-yeon or something like that. I don't know.
That's amazing. I'm gonna watch Mr. Queen and I'm gonna log on as a fangirl, but I'm fangirling for the producer of the show. Your one woman fandom is gonna be me.
Yes.
But yeah, I definitely. Do you know what? When I was reading this book, I was thinking about that too because there's a lot of like just colonization, neocolonialism. It's everywhere. Like so important. It's like literally it permeates so much of our space. And I was thinking, I was reading it, this happening in Korea, and I was like, okay, so it happened from this point to this point, 1945. And then I'm like, this is still happening in Canada. And I'm the colonizer, like I'm the racialized settler. You know what I mean? And
somebody recently pointed that out. Like, you know how we're always like, oh, white people, those white colonizers, blah, blah, blah. But he was like, you know, I mean, we can't blame the individual, right? But he's like, you know, like all of the people who also came after, like, yeah, they were white immigrants, but there were also Asian immigrants who bought into this American dream and came here and just settled on the land without really thinking about like what lands that they were taking and destroying. And so he's like, "You're a colonizer too." And I was like,
I am. We are.
and now, like going back to like my little like suburban, not suburban, but it's like, you know, utopia, like all of the houses look the same, we all have like a big yard and things. I'm like, this seems disgusting to me. Like, what the heck? How did I it's just so weird to think about.
You'll see that I froze on the screen just now because Stephanie Bookish arrived and I'm having a little starstruck moment again.
That's why you paused. You just stopped reacting.
Live stream is just 1 hour of me exposing myself as like a nervous fangirl in the booktube community.
Okay, let's give Sunny a moment to breathe now that Steph is here.
I'm so embarrassed. Okay, but what I was gonna say is like, yeah, we're racialized settlers, and it's like this is still happening for people. People are still living in, you know, it's not just like we can close a book and like that's it. We are part of it, and
yeah, like Chinese Taipei, and then also here, and that's why. Okay, like trying to live somewhere, and like I love going to New York. There are so many people there, but I'm like, how do I reconcile like me living here and like, you know, like land back things? And I'm continuously learning more and more. But I'm like, how should I live to like be conscious of this? And that's why I love the book There by Tommy Orange, which talks about what they call like urban Indians. So a lot of indigenous people live on reservations, but they also live in the cities. And then so this was just talking, one thing that they said was like, isn't everything made out of earth? Like the buildings and the roads and the highways, isn't it all still like what the earth provides? Or do you not consider earth because it's been like processed and manufactured? Like, isn't this all like still bowl? And I was like, oh my gosh, that is so cool. But yeah.
gosh, yeah, I saw you talk about that book in your wrap up.
You watch my videos? Wow.
Can you tell? Can you tell that I was the first 7 comments, one after the other.
And then it was Hannah. Love it.
Me live tweeting that nobody asked for. Under your video. Me live reacting.
No, I appreciate them. Oh, but yeah, also like I forgot I had this distinct memory that like Taeyar didn't fly in the kamikaze. Also, that makes me so mad that people. Okay, I not so many Koreans did the kamikaze. It was mainly Japanese people, but that they like recruited them and was like, "You're not brave enough," and they're like, "You know what? I am brave enough," and they're like, "Go kill yourself for us." And that just is like, oh, and like when people talk about how the kamikaze is like, oh my gosh, suicide, like they're so crazy. And I'm like, you know, they made Korean people do that. And
did you know?
Oh, but I had a distinct memory that like Taeyar didn't die because the weather wasn't good. But you know, from the spoiler, I guess. But like from the time that they got the letter that he was dead to the time where it's revealed that he's not was like so long. So I was like, wait, like was this a fake memory that I had? Like what the heck is happening?
Would this be a good time? Okay, first of all, let me tell you that I did not know what the kamikaze was before I read this book. So I read this and I was like, so embarrassing. I learned what the kamikaze was for the first time while reading this book. So what a horrible surprise. What a horrible surprise it was when I read the words kamikaze and I was like, oh, okay. And they told me what it was, and I was very.
I feel like the U.S. talked about it because the U.S. was like the target for the kamikaze. So you know, in U.S. history books, they're like, "Look what the Japanese did to us."
Oh my gosh! Can I say? Maybe I'll upload this video onto my channel, like after this live stream, if I feel so brave enough. I will show you. I'm not sure if it's gonna show up, but if you guys want to see me crying, here it is. Oh my gosh, I'm really embarrassed. I look really, really crusty. Oh my gosh, thanks, Dana. Okay.
You're so cute.
Oh my gosh, wait, I'll tell you the exact moment when I thought that Taylor died, and then the moment when it was revealed that he was not in fact dead. You can see it. Oh my gosh, wait, now I'm embarrassed. I look really crusty.
You look so cute. You look so perfect.
It was like 1 a.m. This was like a 1 a.m. decision. Anyway, I'll just show you the moment when I figured out that he wasn't dead. Reggie.
Ready.
That was the moment.
No, but it really did take so long.
It took so long.
I like, okay, yeah, there are so many things I remember from this book. Like, at the end, oh my gosh, I always talk about this. When the U.S. people, the white U.S. soldiers come back in, and they talk about the rice, it being like long and white, and they're like, oh, long, just like the Americans, like long and skinny, and I'm like, I love that so much. And then also, the scene, oh, like they look so either so white, they look translucent, or so red that they would be hot to touch. Do you remember that scene? Maybe I don't know. That scene stuck in my head because I was like, that is so hilarious. Like, I was like, oh my gosh, Americans, they're either so white, their skin looks translucent, or so red that if I were to touch them, I think I would get burned. Like, I love that, and I always talk about like, oh my gosh, there's so many scenes in this book where I'm just like, that is burned in my memory forever.
Oh my gosh, wait. Sorry. I don't know why I chose to rewatch that because now I'm reliving it. Now I'm reliving what. Oh, I'm reliving that moment when I thought that Taylor died. And then it was Ruth, and he came back.
Oh my gosh. Okay, also, there was a thing long before. But the uncle,
We never saw him again.
we never saw him again. Yeah. Hang on. Oh my gosh. And we might never see him again. And like, as you mentioned, Sunny, like, and also in the author's note about how immediately after there was the Korean War. And so if he was stuck in China and then like the Korean War happened and then now there's a huge divide. And like, even to this day, there are so many families who are torn between the borders. And there are like occasionally meetups and things like that. And yeah, but it's like very, very occasional. And actually, okay, I don't know if this is like South Korea, like being whatever, but South Korea talking about, oh, like South Korea is like down to have this and reunite people, but the North Korea leaders are like, no, we don't care. And so, but maybe this is just South Korea talking about how like they're nice, but you know, I can't believe everything. But like a few years ago when we got our new president in South Korea, like they had a meetup and they only accepted like 100 people. And so you could apply. But the thing is, like, when you apply, you don't know if your other side is also applying and or like is alive or anything. So, and they only accept 100 people. So if you don't get accepted, it's either because like, oh, you know, we just maxed out, or your family is not alive, and thus like you won't get to come to this reunion, and like you never know. And like, of course, all of these people are really, really old grandpas, grandmas, like grand people now, and so like soon there will not be this connection, and it's just, like, you know, you just ended up on like the wrong side, like on opposite sides, and it's, oh my gosh.
Yeah, it kind of. Do you remember when the last World War I veteran passed away? And it was like, I just imagine that must be coming soon, like for, you know.
I mean, there are so many things like that happened that are now slowly, like all of the things from World War II, like this colonization, like Holocaust survivors, like all of these people, sadly, like they're getting older, and I don't know. It's just right now it feels so relevant, but even now we're already forgetting, and it's already becoming just like, oh, that was like ancient history.
Yeah.
But the way that we're able to bring it back is to say, oh, there are people still alive from this, and like firsthand stories. But then in like 10 years, we aren't going to have those firsthand stories.
Yeah. Okay, well, first of all, I was watching you while you were talking, and I think my Wi-Fi became better for like a hot minute because it really like made your video camera HD for a second. I was literally stunned by how beautiful you looked on screen. You were like glowing with your cute little dimples, and I was like, no, I'm not even joking. I'm not even joking. My Wi-Fi, it like really did something for me for a minute, and I was like, Luna's so pretty. But anyway, I completely agree. That was out of left field, but I completely agree. It's just it's such a shame because I don't know. Personally, for me too, like I don't even know the next time that I'm gonna be able to see my family in Korea, go to Korea. I don't know who is gonna be around if I do go to Korea when I'm, more of an adult. And being able to, I forget what book I read this in, but like the fact that like being able to record your history, like have your history recorded, is such a privilege. And like, yeah, a lot of people when your history is just erased. Oh, I remember what book it was. It was Legendborn by Tracy Dion. The fact that like being
What?
able to Legendborn by Tracy Dion,
Okay.
I would recommend it. But if the fact that being able to trace back your family lineage and have that recorded somewhere is a privilege that not everybody has. Oh my gosh, thanks. How are you doing this?
I'm a tech queen.
How are you doing this? I don't know how you're multitasking like this because I can't drive and breathe at the same time, is what I learned. So,
I don't know. I'm so bad at driving. I'm not gonna drive. Also, like, okay, I'm not very good at driving, and also like I don't know. I would rather sit in the passenger seat and like text people or do something.
me too.
Rather
I
than like
fully
focusing on the road. Like that is too much. Oh, my parents were rewatching one of my old vlogs when I like went downstairs, and there was just my face on a huge screen, and I was like, hello. But I was driving in it was the Indian readathon vlog, and I was driving, and I was like, oh, wow, I haven't driven in so long because
Yeah.
I'm kind of bad at driving. And then on top of that, every time I do make a tiny mistake, I'm always like, don't look at me, please don't see that I'm an Asian female. Like I don't want to reinforce.
Me too. I'm like, I don't want you to look through my window and think that it's exactly who you think it is. Not today, not today. Oh my gosh, special guest. Who's knocking on your door?
I just hear like, and I don't know if it's on my door, but I'm just.
I fully, the second that I hear my voice on another screen, if I ban my family members from like watching anything in front of me. Not for me. I absolutely hate it.
Yeah.
Even editing it's a stretch. It's a stretch. I feel like I become nose blind to my voice at a certain point.
Girl, you upload like 5 videos a week. You're listening to your voice and seeing your face so much.
That's not gonna last when the school year starts this. No, can I say, sorry, for real though? People who are in school right now and on BookTube, can I literally ask literally how you do it? I don't know. I'm so scared. It's coming up. I don't know.
No, just
I'm not allowed to subscribe. Can I say something? Do you know my Instagram, like my Instagram for my channel, I've banned people from following it because do you know how Instagram can recommend other accounts to you if some of your mutuals are following it? I've like banned everyone from following it. I'm like, it's public. You can just check in from time to time. Don't follow it. I don't want
like the people that you know.
Yeah.
Oh.
Because it gets recommended to other people who you're mutual friends with. I'm about to take this to the grave with me. Oh, I block people. Stephanie says I block people. That's so funny.
I don't block people. Like, I mean, my Instagram is not really a book Instagram, so I guess.
That's so funny. It would be so funny if you didn't tell anyone, like your close friends who support your channel, that you're blocking them, and then they like, what's up with them? And they say,
why am I not following you? And you're
I'm not letting me follow you.
Oh, Yasmin! Wait, I don't know. Maybe Yasmin can talk about this. Yasmin can approve or whatever. But
what is it? What happened?
She had a very popular video and she privated it.
That's so funny. That's so funny. Oh my gosh. That's the kind of energy that I want to bring into 2022.
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay. So Yasmin's very popular video is tier ranking Shadow and Bone characters for like with the Netflix show, and like that was like going super popular. And so apparently one of her like sister's friends or somebody, or like, yeah. Anyway, a lot of people found Yasmin, and Yasmin immediately privated that video, even though like it had like 100 times more views than any of her other videos. Yasmin was like, I don't care.
That's so funny.
You know what? You're thriving without it. You're thriving without it. It's fine.
That's so funny. Oh my gosh, no. I thought that no one would find me because BookTube is such. I feel like only people on BookTube would ever get recommended BookTube. Is like what I was thinking, right? And no one in my life reads, so I was like, I'm good. This one person who's like friend adjacent, like they're my sister's friend, randomly found one of my videos because it was like something niche that they're actually searching for. The way that my heart leapt up. Also, can I just say, I don't know if this is just me. Does anyone like contemplate literally like taking another channel or like changing everything like every 3 hours? Because I do.
Oh, like I just put everything on my channel. Like it started out as vlog thing. You can see my adventures in Spain when I was in Spain. Wow, fun. And then I don't know. I just do whatever.
FOMO. I did not. Wait, maybe I did watch Yasmin's video. Maybe I did, or maybe did I?
Yeah, so make it unlisted, and then send us the link.
Yeah, it won't get leaked. Don't worry, it wasn't me. I mean, what?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really care if what people do. I'm doing good. I'm not doing bad things. They can come and see what a chaotic mess I am, and that's just how I am. So I'm just like, whatever.
Literally, no. I think the thing for me is that the reason that because I'm not embarrassed about my channel or anything I'm doing. The reason for me is that I think I've said this before. No one knows that I read books because it never comes up. I don't like the only time that I'm hanging out with other people, I'm like doing things that aren't reading. So like when would it come up? Nobody knows that I read. It would be so out of pocket. So out of pocket if people figured out that it would be so out of
Sunny's secret life. Secret,
yeah.
What is it?
No, literally.
Guilty pleasure. Ooh, so scandalous. She reads. Ah!
Even my sisters, once they found my channel, because I kept it a secret, after they found my channel, they were like, Sunny, I didn't know that you read this many books. I was like, yeah, because I don't share with the class. It's just me. Literally, it's just me with a dead stare in my eyes right before I go to sleep, reading under massive blue light. And that's all so no one sees that, you know? Who would see that? I don't want anyone to see that. On my side, so like all the fat on my face is rolling down to this side because of gravity. It's not a cute look. It's not a cute look.
Yeah, I feel like we both have like kind of like similar like this like faces. But yeah, I don't know how people like lie down and like film videos, and I'm just like my face just like morphs. But yeah. What? Oh. Catfish. But okay, I'm gonna bring it back to Keoko really quick.
Oh yes, ma'am.
Modern times. Because I just remembered seeing this note of the 2020 Olympics that were supposed to happen last year. Apparently, like when they canceled it, Japan didn't want it to be canceled because, like, you know, it's a big thing and it's like also like an honor or whatever to host it. And so Japan was very upset that the Olympics were being canceled, but like it's like we have no choice. And I don't know, they billed the 2020 Olympics committee. Does that mean like they sued the Olympics for like canceling it? I have no idea. But and then in May of this year, they surveyed the citizens, and 70 to 80% of the Tokyo citizens wanted the Olympics canceled because they were like, we don't feel comfortable having like all these people from all around the world here and like raising our risk and things like that. And Japan still went through with it. And I'm very curious to see why. Like, was it a money thing? Because I know that it costs a lot of money to, like, millions and lot of money to reschedule the Olympics, apparently. I don't know. And then I don't know. It's just like a big hassle, and like we don't know when the next opportunity will be. It seems like in general everything turned out like relatively safe, but also I don't know. There's like some view, especially in certain populations of Korea, where like it's like Japan is like a very proud country and like kind of continuing their like cultural imperialism, like cultural colonization, the kind of things, and like them being like, no, like we have to do it this year in Japan. Like we don't care what the citizens say, and then still doing it. So and then also, you know, the nuclear plant went off in Fukushima like 10 years ago ish. So ever since then, South Korea has banned the import of seafood from Fukushima to Korea, which makes sense at the beginning. Like all of the fish and things were radiated, and it was not safe for humans to eat. But Korea still has that ban. And some people might think it's petty, whatever. But during the Olympics, from the research that I found, one of the deals that Japan made with the Olympics committee or whatever was that they would like promote whatever Japan wanted to feed the athletes, and they served everyone like specifically Fukushima food to show that like Japan is like all safe now, and we have all this great technology, and like we're serving you Fukushima food because we're so confident in our cleanliness and our ability to have like come back from this nuclear plant explosion and like give you safe food. And South Korea was not having it, and they didn't eat any of the food and like brought in their own food and just cooked their own food in the kitchens and thing. And so, you know, even to this day, there's still a lot of like tension. Korea, I think in general, as a whole, Korea still views Japan as seeming very like proud and very like pushing towards trying to make their image look good. And I don't know, like both sides, I feel like both sides are like kind of like petty-esque in this kind of term. Yeah, it's weird. And then also I heard that when there were a lot of like tsunamis and things in Japan, in Korea, they like did a lot of fundraisers, and there were like signs on the street saying like, I know what Japan did, like colonial Japan did, but like the people are suffering, so let's raise money and help them like rebuild houses and things like that. And then Japan, when they like, you know, did a lot of things, and then they put like a huge thank you thing to all of the big country donors. They put like US and blah 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 blah, and Korea was nowhere on there, even though we were like the number 2 donor. I say we as if I did anything. I wasn't there. But yeah, Japan did not include South Korea on the list. So then South Korea was like, you're not even thanking us after we like donated so much money. Like, we are never helping you again. Y'all are out here. Oh. Anyway, it's very interesting how like this tension and things has lasted today. And yeah,
I definitely catch some of those vibes sometimes, like even from my family or even from other. Yeah, there's like feels like there's a little people don't have the best image of. I feel like people like who grew up here and stuff and don't feel disconnected don't really worry about it all. But I don't know. I kind of sense that from like especially like older generation of Koreans, like some like ajushis, you know, samchons or like those people here. I definitely feel that sometimes, and then I just stand there like tight-lipped, like awkward. I don't know what to say. Yeah.
I mean, it's a complicated thing, right? To shame the like country and the government, but keep that separate and like not offend the individual people, which is something I liked about this book. And I don't know, it's just a thing in general. Also, there are some things of like Japan. There are some movements in Japan trying to bring back the rising sun flag. If y'all don't know, I highly recommend you look up this flag. it's the Japanese flag, like is just a red circle, right? But the rising sun flag has like red rays coming out of it, and there are people being like, why doesn't Japan use that flag? Like that flag is so much more interesting than just their red circle. And it's like, because that was that represented imperial Japan, and it's like equivalent or parallel to like the swastika of Germany, because the swastika wasn't Germany's like nation flag, but it was the symbol for the like military forces. And so rising sun flag was the symbol for imperial Japan. And so it's of course a very, very bad symbol, but there are some movements and some, I don't know, there's some famous person who has a tattoo of the rising sun flag. And there are some like fashion people who like incorporated that flag, and it's just kind of weird. So, you know, educate yourself on the symbol and do not associate with it. But yeah, okay, we should also wrap up because also I have to pee.
Oh.
But also one summarizing thing, I think it's so cool that like this happened in Korea where our culture and our people were almost destroyed, and now we're like pretty booming.
If I do say so, you're like, well. No,
like you're teaching Korean. Like I taught Korean last year, like just very basic Korean, but there are a lot of like not Korean people who want to learn Korean, and I think it's so cool. Like I'm so excited, and like I don't know, people are very obsessed with K-pop, which I'm not. I don't really super care about K-pop, but I think it's cool that like people have an interest and want to learn.
Yeah, I think that it's something, especially, I don't know, at least for me though, I feel very lucky to have like witnessed such a trajectory in my life where when I was younger, no one knew what Korea was. I remember talking to the bus driver, and now that I think about it, this is not okay for the bus driver to say this to this like 5-year-old kid on the school bus, but he would just turn around and be like, oh, are you from China, Japan, or Vietnam? He would ask me that. By the way, that's not okay to ask this random kid. And people would ask that to me. I would get that question all the time. Also, I live in a predominantly white neighborhood, if that gives any more context to it. But I'll be asked that question on a regular basis all the time. China, Japan, or Vietnam. People would ask me that all the time. And then I'll say, oh, Korea. And they'll be like, what's Korea? And then I'll explain it to them. Seeing Korea become so on the map in my life so quickly it's so surreal to me. Even now, it's like really bizarre to me still. And I feel very lucky to like have seen it on both, seen the journey to it. It's like, isn't that strange?
Oh my gosh, I didn't really like think about that and process that. But yeah, like whenever I was younger, I don't think there were very many Vietnamese people in our area, but it would always be like Chinese or Japanese. And I don't think it's even necessarily because of the people in the community, because we had a pretty decent Korean community, but it's just like what's shown on media. And Japan has a very good relationship with the US, because the US felt really bad about destroying Japan and put in a crap ton of money into Japan's economy after World War II. And so they have a really tight relationship, and all of the like cutesy characters and Hello Kitty and all of these like other things that Japan has really like pushed forward and is very popular in Korea. Like people know about Japan, and then obviously people know about China. And so yeah, nobody knew what Korea was. And now, like when people find out I'm Korean, they're like, oh my gosh, like I was in Korea. I mean, I was in Spain in different areas, and like in Morocco, oh my gosh, in Morocco, I was like walking down like a market aisle, and then somebody walked by and they said 안녕하세요, which is Korean for hello, 안녕하세요. And then I was just like, oh, 안녕하세요, and they're like, oh my god, I was like, what the heck?
That's such a cute reaction.
Yeah, and then in Spain, I talked to a lot of random strangers. In Spain, like people were sitting down on the train, and then I started talking to them in Spanish, and then they were like, "Oh, where are you from?" I was like, "Oh, Chicago," and they're like, "Oh, Chicago, the U.S. No, like I want to live there." Blah, blah, blah. And then like I talked about how it's Korean, and they're like, "Oh, Korean! Oh my god!" And then yeah, it's just very.
Wait, that's so cool. You can speak Spanish?
Yeah, hablo español.
Wow, that's so cool. I sound like a tourist. That's so cool.
Yeah.
Wow, that's so cool. I think we learn French in Canada. Is anyone Canadian here? I don't speak French.
Wait, do you speak French?
un petit peu seulement. Je ne suis pas bon à la français. C'est pas bon. Mais j'ai besoin de beaucoup de pratique.
Okay. 안녕하세요.
Shalom. 안녕하세요. Yes, 안녕하세요. Oh my gosh, the squiggly is how you know. Do you know what? I wanted to say this before we leave, but oh my gosh, I'm from Toronto. Or like I say Toronto, but it's like the GTA. Like I'm from like an hour from Toronto. Yeah. But what I wanted to say before we leave here, Dana, specifically to you, is that like this was so it was so surreal and bizarre to me still because like I said earlier, but I'm from not a very diverse community. It's getting more diverse now, but I grew up in like a predominantly white suburbia, you know? So something like learning about Korean history and like really talking about it, thinking about it, being excited about it is something that I didn't really happen a lot. In fact, I'm sure you could ask other people who might have the same experience as me in the city, but it was very much an experience of feeling very ashamed, embarrassed, repressing it, rejecting it, and then only pretty recently, I would say, maybe like starting from high school, like a couple years ago, is when I really started being more proud of it and like really getting into it and stuff. I think it really much aligns with the time that Korea was starting to become on the map, so that 110% has something to do with it too. But even still, for me, sometimes it's a little bit uncomfy for me at times to talk about it, you know, and not do like nunchi, like not, you know, look at people and being like, "Is this okay?" And so it's so refreshing for me to like be with someone like as excited as this. Like I wanted to say thank you, and especially I want to say thank you for reaching out because you know that I'm very shy. I'm very shy. If you couldn't tell, like, this live, very shy on books, especially because I literally am such a fangirl to everyone. So I was very 감동. I was so touched when you reached out to me because it made me feel in such like a warm, you know, bright way. But how could I be nervous and scared about that? And this conversation was such like thank you for teaching me so much about history that I didn't know about, and in such like a digestible, you know, bright, energetic way. It was such a good time, and I really appreciate it. Koma. So
I'm so happy that you like it shook your soul, like it's shook mine.
it did.
Oh my gosh.
Even better than that, it was like a gateway, I feel like, because now I feel like opened the floodgates and and now it's like I need to think about things in a different way, I guess, now. You know? And I feel like that's even better, you know?
Yeah. And even like through the stream, like the things that you've talked about, like we've just had like I mean, I kind of I don't know, I feel like we've had like we just click like when we first called for when we read Amari and the Night Brothers. You should read that book. But I don't know, it's just like we've had such similar experiences growing up in like such different areas. But
Yeah.
it's just so wonderful to talk to you.
And even the ways that we grew up differently, like I loved hearing about, especially when we talked earlier, like I loved hearing about like the city that you live in, especially because I don't know anything about America. I don't know anything about Illinois. When you said Chicago, I was like, when you said Chicago earlier, I was like, I thought you lived in Illinois.
No, but one of my friends said that she went to Mexico City and like somebody at the hospital asked where she was from and she's like, oh, near Chicago. And like we just think like, oh yeah, everybody knows what Chicago is. But it's like, oh, we're near Chicago. And she's like, oh, where is that? And it's like, whoa, it just like takes you out and it's like, not everyone is obsessed with the US. Wow, oh my god.
No, if anyone is in Toronto, like hit me up. If for some reason anyone is in Toronto, I'm around. We can get Timmy's.
Yasmin?
We can get Timmy's together.
Timmy, like Tim Hortons?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Can I just say when I said Timmy's and people were like, what? I was like, what?
No, I'm hip with the Canadian culture, Sunny. Come on.
But yeah, I wanted to say thank you. Thank you for showing up to this call looking like a full meal that is feeding a whole village. I wish I got the memo. Quite frankly, I wish I got the memo so I could match energy with you. my gosh, Timmy's ice cap, iconic. Okay. Anyway, if you can't tell, words of affirmation is my primary love language. Also, I'm a very sentimental person. I very much don't have a filter. I say the first thing that comes to my mind. My friend told me that she doesn't like it when I get like this because it feels like I'm about to die or something.
Oh
And
my gosh, I recently wrote my sister a letter saying like, because she's just like starting to live in the dorms, and I'm like, I'm so proud of you. Like, I love you so much. Like, I'm so excited for you to go to college and meet more people than your stupid high school people, and like for you to actually find good friends.
Mhm.
And then she just texted me. She's like, your note was very sweet. It made me sad because it seemed like a suicide note, but I love you. I'm like, oh.
My friend keeps telling me like, I hate when you do that because it feels like you're gonna move to Mexico tomorrow or something. And I was like, stop! I just get senti. I get
Okay,
senti.
so like Sunny, you and I can just like adore each other all the time. I would say more, but like I really have to pee, so
Oh my
like
I'm so sorry. I'm so
Yeah.
sorry. I was the
I
limiting
always have to pee.
reason.
My friends like every time I'm like, okay, I have to pee, and they're like, wow, classic Dana. And I'm so like, what?
I'm sorry. I was
No,
sorry. I
no, no,
was
I'm
restraining you.
sorry.
Go off. Go off. Go off.
No,
Pee.
no. You are so wonderful, and this was so beautiful, and I'm so glad that so many people came. Like I was really like, it's just gonna be me and you. And Yasmin was like, I'll be there. I was like, okay, me, you, and Yasmin.
Oh my
I'm
god.
excited that so many people came, even though like it was kind of a mess, and we pushed it back a day. And this makes me so happy and like so excited.
I'm glad people came too. I get nervous. I get nervous because I'm such a fan. I've said that a million times.
Now you all know that Sunny's obsessed with you, and she's a shy girl. So you got to be not a shy girl and talk to Sunny, because that's what I did. Sunny's like, I'm a shy girl. I was like, good thing I'm not. I'm just like, hey, Sunny, video call. And then
Dana, how many times have I told you? I always say to you, thank you for being the first to reach out. I always say that to you because I'm always so shy. Okay. Oh my gosh, go. I'm so stressed out for you. Go.
Okay.
Rip.
But yeah, so well, thank you so much for coming. And there is a holiday in 1 month. Oh, happy Liberation Day. So yeah, yesterday, August 15th is the day that we celebrate the liberation from the Japanese occupation. So yay! Not all of the books will be, as I said, not all of the books will be historical fiction kind of things. But I thought this was a good intro, like digestible intro to, yeah, I'm so happy. I'm also so happy that so many people read this book. Even if they didn't come here, like so many people read the book. I'm like, oh my gosh, because it's like now, Sunny, I'm guessing for you too, like it's such like a book for us, and like, oh my gosh. And so just the fact that so many people read it and like went through it with us and like know a little bit more about the history that even we didn't know is like so amazing and so wonderful. And again, my little baby cousin who just started middle school in Korea, like her saying like, I want more people to know what happened in Korea. And that just like broke my heart. My little baby, she's just like now learning more about like the harsh realities and things. And she's like, I want people to know. And I was like, oh, okay, I'll do it for you. But yes, I'm so happy that all of you read this book. Yeah. And yeah, any last words, Sunny?
Thank you all for coming. You guys, everyone is so nice here. You know, every single day I get so shocked that I'm like, people are so nice, and everyone is really, really sweet. Thanks for
coming. Yeah.
Oh, also, if anybody has any Korean books that they want to read, tell us. We can read it.
This is a communal space.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sunny, you can pick the next one since I did this one. But
oh my god. Yasmin can pick the next one.
Are we popcorning now?
Okay.
Okay.
I'm so stressed out for you.
This is a Korean heart. Wow, like it's like a little mini heart, and so you can do it with one hand. So then if I'm like doing something, I'm like, and you can also send it like, or like, oh, I have something in my, oh, or it's like, oh wait, I forgot. Oh my gosh. Ooh. Yeah. 누끼해. 다시 해봐.
미안해.
Okay.
Okay.
Anyway, bye everyone. Thank you so much
Bye.
for staying after and everything.